What up, guys? Jordan from FedAF. Today we are talking stress, namely how to stop feeling stressed virtually instantaneously. And I know this sounds like some form of clickbait. I promise you it is not. I also promise you I'm not going to be showing you a meditation technique or a breathing technique, which does work well. However, it's not generally an instantaneous way to decrease stress. Although I highly advocate meditation and different forms of holotropic breathing, I'm also not going to sit here and tell you to pop a Xanax. So let's get into it and let's start with a few basics. So I think I need to clearly state something that is very apparent to me and apparent to a lot of people, but some people don't understand. Nothing has the ability to make you stressed. Stressed is your response to an external stimuli. What I mean by that is this. If you are in traffic and you're feeling stressed, it is not the traffic that's making you stressed. It is you being late to work or you wanting to rush home to eat or see your wife and kids that is forming the stress. Nothing alone has the ability to make you stressed. And this is very crystal clear to me, and it really needs to be something that you believe and understand down to the bone, because otherwise you will always be at the effect of your external circumstance. Now, just because I know that traffic isn't what's making me stressed, it's my internal reaction, doesn't mean I don't get pissed off in traffic. I do from time to time. But if you have the ability to kind of get grounded in the fact, say you're in traffic and you're finding yourself stressed, you could always remember, hey, this is just my reaction to stress. I'm really hungry and I want to get home. And that oftentimes is the ability to decrease your stress. So wanted to get that out of the way. Let's talk about what stress is. Stress generally is kind of a tension in the body, and it's usually correlated to cortisol. Now, there's other hormones involved, but cortisol is the primary stress hormone. And I also don't want to make cortisol feel shitty, because cortisol is not all bad. Cortisol is important for a bunch of vital bodily functions. Now, what happens in the presence of excess cortisol? Well, one interesting fact is that after about 7 minutes of having your cortisol levels elevated, your IQ diminishes by about 40 to 50%. Your IQ is literally cut in half. Now, if you run a business, if you are an executive, a high performer, if you're somebody who needs to make really effective decisions, clear decisions, and have full access of your mental cognition, this is not going to serve you. Constantly being in a state of stress is going to cause you, honestly, to make poor decisions and do things that you normally would not do. So stress is also bad because it's correlated to a lot of disease. The effects of stress are a multitude. But for me, I don't like to feel stressed, namely because I make shitty decisions, I'm not thinking clearly, and I don't like how it makes me feel. So as humans, we are binary creatures. We want to move toward what's pleasurable and away from what's painful. So stress is generally painful. So we want to move away from that. Some methods that we do that are also called vices. These are generally instant gratification means to feel better relatively instantly. And they work in the sense that if you're stressed and you're somebody who relies upon nicotine, you go smoke a cigarette. For those couple minutes, you're going to feel a decrease in stress. Some people, play video games. Some people do drugs. Some people scroll up and down Facebook. All these are various degrees of different vices that we use to distract ourselves. Now, to a degree, these aren't bad, but what happens is we become over-reliant upon these distractions. And when we distract ourselves, we are temporarily taking ourselves out of the moment. And then when we arrive back in the moment, once we put that cigarette down, we often feel worse, because in comparison to how we felt before, we went from feeling stressed to decreasing the stress. And now we are generally going to feel worse because we felt that relief of stress. And now we're back to where we were, and we realize, crap, now there's no way out of this. I'm still stressed. I just use my vice to try to change the way I feel, and I still feel crappy. So, just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that having good stress coping mechanisms is very important. And what I'm about to show you is, in my mind, the ultimate stress coping mechanism. As it's efficient, it's not necessarily a distraction, but it actually increases your stress resilience. It increases your ability to handle stress in the future, and that's what we want. As somebody who wants to grow a business, improve my quality of life, I don't want to continually, break in the face of stress. I want to face the stress, feel it, move past it, and continue on. So, what am I talking about? What is this magic stress dissolver that apparently quells stress instantaneously? Well, it's this. Drum roll, please. Cold exposure. Not sure that's what you thought, or not sure that's where you thought it was going with this or not, but cold exposure is taking a cold shower, taking a cold bath, going in a cryotherapy unit, doing snow angels in the snow. So let's briefly go over this. What happens when you are exposed to the cold? When you are exposed to the cold, your body goes through a stressful reaction. Your body goes into a slight fight or flight. The sympathetic nervous system actually elevates. So you're saying, okay, I'm going to get rid of my stress by getting more stressed. Pay attention. So when, say, you jump into a tub that's 40 degrees Fahrenheit, it's very cold. Immediately, you're going to do this. And that is that vagus nerve being stimulated and causing the sympathetic tone to rise. You are getting very sympathetic or fight or flight. You are getting a lot of activation. So what happens is all the blood flows inward. All the blood goes to the internal organs to protect them. And this is kind of a good thing, because your body wants to protect what's most important. My right pinky is not all that important, so the blood from my right pinky is going to go to protect my heart, liver, all these internal organs that are more important. The issue with this, the reason why people get things like frostbite and hypothermia, is that once all the blood comes from the appendages and moves inward, you aren't left with much warmth, much warm circulating blood in the appendages, and then these things begin to freeze. So here's the practice of cold exposure for you. What we do when we expose ourselves to cold is we want to go from that fight or flight state, that sympathetic response of, fuck, I'm cold, to rest and digest. If you could get yourself to sit in a 40-degree tub for 3 minutes and go from a mainly sympathetic driven tone to a parasympathetic or rest or digest state, you are practicing the ability for you to decrease your stress in the moment. Now, this applies, after you do this a few times, this applies to going from, again, being in traffic or having an employee be a pain in the ass, and your original reaction is to get pissed off and annoyed and maybe say things that you normally wouldn't. This allows you to calm yourself down in the moment, virtually, without even having to think about it. Cold exposure is a workout for your nervous system. You are training yourself to go from fight or flight to rest and digest. So all that's good, but how does it help you feel better instantly? It does. So cold exposure has been shown to increase beta endorphins and norepinephrine. This is actually where a lot of the science shows that cold exposure helps things like depression. Norepinephrine is a great inflammatory, a way to decrease inflammation, namely in the brain. So this is thought to be a possible reason people get depressed, is that there's inflammation in different parts of the brain, and cold exposure increases, again, norepinephrine and beta endorphins. Sorry, trying to remember all this. So On top of that, cold exposure does decrease cortisol, which is that stress hormone. So literally, I promise if you are feeling stressed, do it right now. And the second part of this video, I'm going to walk you through how I go through an exercise of cold exposure. This is something I do pretty much every morning and pretty much as needed. If I'm fucking stressed, I go sit in my cold tub. Not everybody has a cold tub. I highly advocate it, but you can also take a cold shower. And if it's something you really dig and get down with, I bought a cold tub for $100, caulked it with some silicone caulking, fill it with water, throw some bromine in there to keep it clean, and voila, you have a cold tub. Set it on a timer to be on for a couple hours a day, and it'll keep it around 35 to 40 degrees, which is where you want it. So when you are stressed, if you go take a cold shower, you will immediately feel better. And this is nothing that you'll believe until you actually do it. But I promise you, it is the quickest change of state you can do. There's reasons why people like Tony Robbins jump into a cold tub every morning, because his goal is to change his state. Now, someone like Tony Robbins generally isn't always in the stressed mode, but he wants to be in the highest level state as possible. And cold exposure really does this. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. Beyond all this stress stuff, cold exposure has been possibly shown to increase longevity. There's components of it that help with exercise recovery. There's also reasons why you wouldn't want to do it right after exercise, namely weight training, because it could get in the way of your body's ability to reap gains in both strength and hypertrophy, and that we'll get into in another video. But that's all I really want to state right now. I'm going to make a video going through kind of what I go through, which is basically some form of breathing pattern right into the cold, and then usually a form of meditation after. You don't need to do all that. If you want to feel better right now, go hop in the shower for 30 seconds, put it all the way cold, and focus on your breath. So once you jump in that shower, you're going to go, and you're going to be like, fuck, why did I listen to this random dude on the internet? But I promise you, once you jump out of that shower, you're going to feel great. If you make a practice of this, you will continue to feel great, and your stress resilience will increase. Your ability to handle stress is only going to get better, and it is the ultimate superpower. So that being said, I hope that was valuable to you. Like I said, I'm going to make a video going over how exactly to do this. But in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please feel free to message below or ask me. And that's all I got. Thanks, guys. Bye.